spiritual sequel to what I believe is the most popular video on this channel, and we're going to talk about football today, but more specifically, we're going to be talking about personnel packages and try to go over some play calling stuff, but I'm not the most well versed in that, so we're just going to, talk about personnel packages mostly and see where it goes. I don't really script this stuff, but anyway, let's start by putting the offense and the defense on this makeshift field here. So we're going to start from the center, work our way out. So right about here, I think we're going to put our center here, and then we're going to go guard, tackle, guard, tackle, and then of course I'm going to use a different color for the quarterback. Let's make the quarterback blue. Why not? So back here we have the quarterback. Okay. And then we're going to use another color for some of our other positions. Let's do green for the skill players. So quarterback, center, guard, tackle. That means our tight end will go right here. This is the tight end, and then that means we will have two wide receivers here and here, and then we'll have a third wide receiver over here, and let's put a running back right here. Okay, so this is, obviously it's not entirely correct, but this is a pretty standard NFL offense that you're going to see. At least it has been for the last couple of years, and we'll get into that in a second. Because a lot of things are changing in the NFL right now, and we're seeing sort of an offensive revolution that is reacting to the way that defenses have been, sort of imposing their will on offenses lately. So for a very long time, this is what you would see. This is called 11 personnel, and the reason it's called 11 personnel is because you have one running back and one tight end. So that would then make it 11 personnel. What you'll see a lot these days, and you're seeing it more and more, especially this year, is NFL offenses are getting into what are called heavy sets, where they are going bigger, and they are using less wide receivers specifically. Seattle, I know, is the example everyone wants to use because Seattle is using more heavy sets than anyone else in the league. So they use a lot of 21, they use a lot of 12, they use the most 13 personnel as anyone in the league. So 13 personnel would be this entire side would be tight ends. So that would then make it 13. So that is what they refer to when they say 13 personnel. 21 personnel would be two running backs. You also, occasionally these days, you do see an extra offensive lineman being added to some of these packages that teams are running. I know the Lions do this a lot, where they run 6 linemen. So sometimes you'll see a 6 lineman, and then let's use red here, and then they'll put a tight end. So you'll have 2 wide receivers. Let me get my green. You'll have 2 wide receivers. You'll have 2 wide receivers, a running back, a 6 lineman, and a tight end. So there's a lot going into the way that teams are adapting right now, and a lot of that has to do with how the defensive side of the ball is playing. It has forced offenses to, change the way that they play the game. So this is why we see a lot more running this year. We've seen an uptick in running. Passing is going down, and the reason for that is because they're running heavier sets. defenses are super, super focused on preventing explosive plays over the middle. So we see these heavier sets and then teams end up running more. But the caveat to this is that because teams are running heavier sets, if you do end up covering for the run, right? If you go for a full like a run blitz or anything, they're gonna beat you over the air, right? There's a creator on YouTube who I especially love when it comes to a lot of this nerdier stuff about football. Michael McKelvey. He has a fantastic video about this, and that was partly the inspiration for me talking about this. Was his video, and I'll probably link it in the description if you want to go check that out, because it is a fantastic video and it's way smarter than anything I could ever do with the way that I do things. So let's now look at defense. And this is my favorite aspect. I've talked about it before. I was a safety in high school, safety and a running back, but I love defensive football, so defenses can get really complicated. And that's not to say that offenses don't also get complicated, but when I say defenses get really complicated, it's because there are a lot more packages that you can run with a defense because you don't have a quarterback. I mean, you have the guy with the green dot, and they call him the quarterback of the defense, but you don't have a quarterback defensively. So let me just build out a defense, and then we'll talk about different things. So I'm going to build a 3-4. So a 3-4 is 3 down linemen. So let's go 1, 2, and 3, and 4 linebackers. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that is 7 of our 11 personnel. That means we need a cornerback, and 2 safeties. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That is 11. So this is just a base 3-4 defense. Okay, so and I've talked about in my other video how this works, but let's go over a real quick refresh just to keep things interesting. So this here in the center, this is called the nose tackle. This guy over here, one of our linebackers, these are the off-ball linebackers right here. These are the guys that are essentially acting as pass rushers. So this is the offense, or the off linebacker, like this. And then this is our other off linebacker over here. And then these two guys, there are middle linebackers, but there are also, of course, specific names that they have. Of course, we only have 2, so this guy would essentially be the Mike right here. The Mike, and then this guy's coming down on the left side here, so that would be our Sam right there. But of course, this isn't a 4-3, so it's not entirely correct to call either of them the Sam or the Mike. They're basically both Mikes, but these are the coverage linebackers. These are the guys that we're going to be using to really try to throw off these offenses. So we've got 2 corners, we've got 2 safeties. Now, one thing that a lot of defenses are doing these days that make passing so difficult, you've got these 2 safeties here, right? And a lot of defenses are built on what is called a 2-high shell. So you have both of these safeties, and they'll drop back into coverage and make the passing lanes much more constricted for opposing quarterbacks. And the other thing that a lot of these defenses are doing is they will substitute one of their linebackers. Typically, it's a linebacker. They will substitute one of their linebackers, so it'll look something more like this. You have 2 off-ball guys. super, super, super focused on just limiting passing, right? But if you notice, in doing this, we have weakened the interior here by spreading out and adding a new corner. So it, in theory, is easier to run. But say, for instance, if our linebackers here, if we move them up, right, if they come up and start on the line, which a lot of the times they do, but um, things move around a lot on the defense. But if we move these guys up and we move our middle linebacker up and we're going full, we're committing to the run. They say we're committing to the run suddenly, even with a nickel out here. If we're running these heavier sets, there's nothing that these guys can do. And one of the big reasons that heavier sets are showing up more and more is because specifically these guys, these linebackers here, are getting smaller. They're quicker than they used to be, but they're not as big as they used to be. So defenses are taking advantage of that by putting multiple tight ends, a 6 offensive lineman. I know Cleveland a lot will run 2 running backs, so they'll just put bigger guys out there to try and out-muscle some of these linebackers, and then in turn make it easier to pass the ball. And I love defense. I love the sort of mind games that are going on right now. And again, this was me over here. I played safety. I wasn't specifically a free safety or a strong safety. I just played safety. I was mostly playing coverage. A lot of the times I would also be playing contain, so I'd be moved up more with the linebackers and, just trying to tackle the guy. And I was not the greatest player by any means, so yeah, but I really like defense. Now, let's take a look at what that might look like in a 4-3 configuration, just for, prosperity's sake, I guess. So, in a 4-3, we have 4 down linemen, like that. We have 3 linebackers, 1, 2, 3. We will have 2 safeties, 1, 2, and 2 corners. Now, this is where it gets a little more interesting. This is where you'll typically see the nickel come in more often in what is like an amalgamation of a 4-3 set. Because when you talk about these things, when you talk 4-3, 3-4, it's just it's more of a guideline than anything. Just to differentiate defensive schemes, because the reality is nickel is the new base, and sometimes they'll swap out a down lineman, sometimes they'll swap out a linebacker. It's not consistent across the league. Different teams play different personnel. Of course, every team doesn't have the same players. They can't do the same things. So, a team with weaker defensive linemen might swap one of them out to bring in the nickel. Whatever. It's very fluid. But of course, this is 4-3, and this is where you're more likely to see the terms that we briefly touched on of Mike being the middle linebacker, the strong side linebacker, the Sam over here going at the left side of the line, and the weak side linebacker, the Will linebacker, over here. So Sam, Mike, Will, you'll hear that a lot as things go on. And then, of course, strong safety and free safety. So let's say, this is the strong safety. And of course, strong safety just means they are more involved in the pass rush and free safety is far more likely. FREE. The free safety is more than likely going to be the ball hawk kind of guy that's just roaming around the field looking to make plays in open space. He's not going to be coming down here all that often. This was, my preferred way to play because I liked, running people over and stuff. And of course, I got run over too. It happens, but I did like this sort of play style a lot more than, just roaming around. Because a lot of the time, at least in my experience where I played in a very small town that was, didn't have a lot of athletes, I'll be so honest. A lot of the times, in my experience, of course, this is probably different at much higher level play, because again, I only played in high school and I only played for 3 years. But when I would play free safety and I would just be over roaming and stuff like that, the ball would never come that way. It would never ever come that way. And I don't even think I was all that good. It's just the quarterbacks I played against had no idea how to deal with that. But yeah, so strong safety will. You'll also kind of hear this term nowadays called the box safety, and it's a little bit of an amalgamation between a safety and a nickel corner. Like the box safety will sometimes, be in charge of man coverage and all these other things. But it's kind of a hybrid safety corner thing. They'll also play, down on the line, and they'll play the QB spy. And of course, the spy in football is just the guy that ensures the quarterback isn't going to run. That's all that really is. So, again, this is a 4-3, and if we're going to bring the example back, just very quickly, of what you might see if we switch this to nickel. We will take out one of our linebackers, again, just because that's what I'm using for this example, and we're going to stick our nickel on the line and put our linebackers right back up there. So that's what that looks like. Sometimes you'll also see 5 down linemen, and again, that's where things like the strong safety and stuff come into play. But more often than not, right, nickel is the new base, and so you'll see variations of this or the other variation where it's 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, something like that. But the other thing that defenses are getting really, really good at is disguised coverages. So Brian Flores does this a lot. Brian Flores is like the guy when you talk about disguised coverage. And what that means is essentially you take the safeties and you put the safeties down here, right? So you put the safeties closer to the line of scrimmage. Sometimes they'll even be on the line of scrimmage. Again, I know Brian Flores loves to put his safeties on the line of scrimmage, and then as the ball is snapped, you'll just see all this movement, right? So this safety might go that way, a corner might go over here, a linebacker might move and start rushing. It's all these different things that happen on the defensive side that have really necessitated a sort of restructuring, I suppose you could say, of what defenses are, or what offenses are needing to do in order to score points. So that, I think, does it. I hope this was, somewhat helpful. I just wanted to talk about football, so I think that's all I've got for you today. Again, I'll link Michael McKelvey's video in the description below if this interests you and you want more knowledgeable, I suppose, just a better explanation of what we've talked about here today. So that will about do it. I thank you as always very much for watching. watching. I hope to speak with you all again soon, and